Ana de Armas stood at the edge of the theater entrance, her soft smile barely holding back the exhaustion that wrapped around her like an invisible coat. The premiere had gone on longer than expected, and the lights still flashed in her eyes, like tiny daggers. She pulled her coat tighter around her shoulders, hoping to shield herself from the cold night and the louder voices of the crowd waiting outside. The moment she stepped forward, a wall of cameras rose, followed by a wave of sharp words. "Anna, over here, look here." One man barked, pushing his camera closer. Another called her name, but twisted it into something unkind, mocking her accent, making her flinch. The laughter that followed wasn't gentle, it stung her ears. She glanced around for her car, for anything that would carry her away from the harsh spotlight. But the car was still a block away, stuck in traffic. Anna felt her heart drummed faster. She had done this before, walked through the noise and the flash. But tonight, for some reason, it felt heavier. Maybe because she had just spoken so honestly in the interview, sharing a piece of her soul, only to step out into a world that sometimes didn't care to listen. Suddenly the voices grew sharper. Someone shouted a cruel question about her past relationship, twisting the words to cut deeper. Anna's eyes dropped to the ground. She didn't owe them an answer, but the shame still flickered inside her. She could feel tears burning at the edge of her eyes, but she blinked hard, refusing to give them that picture. Then from behind, a calm voice broke through the chaos like a gentle wave washing over sharp rocks. "Hey, back off." The tone wasn't loud, but carried a weight that made heads turn. Keanu Reeves stepped forward, hands in his coat pockets, eyes locked on the paparazzi. His expression was calm, but his jaw was tight. The cameras clicked faster now, trying to catch this. New scene, the beloved star stepping between the girl and the shouting voices. Anna looked up at him, surprised. She hadn't known Keanu was still inside. They had worked together on the film, shared kind moments on set, small jokes that made the long days easier. But she never expected him to walk out now, just for her. He didn't say much. He didn't. Keanu took a step closer to her, his presence like a shield. He turned slightly to face the men with cameras, who had gone oddly quiet under his steady gaze. "You have your pictures," Keanu said, his voice even, almost gentle. "Let her breathe. You don't need to shout at her. She's a person, not a show for you to break." The crowd shifted uneasily. Some lowered their cameras. A few mumbled under their breath, but none dared to push forward again. For a moment, Anna felt like the world had pressed pause. The only sound was her own breathing and the steady calm that Keanu brought with him. He reached out, offering her his hand. She took it without thinking, her fingers cold against his warm palm. They began to walk, pushing past the cameras. The car had finally arrived, and Keanu opened the door for her like it was the most normal thing to do. But before he got in, he turned back to the paparazzi and said, "Be better. That's all." The door closed with a soft click. Inside the car, Anna let out a shaky breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Her hands were trembling. Keanu watched her, his eyes gentle, understanding. "You okay?" he asked, voice low. She nodded but couldn't find her words. Instead, a small laugh escaped her, a fragile sound that said more than any sentence. "Thank you," she whispered. "You didn't have to do that." Keanu shrugged, a small smile tugging at the corner of his lips. Right. Nobody should have to stand alone in a storm. The car pulled away from the crowd, leaving behind the flashes and the harsh words. The night outside the window blurred into streams of city lights. Anna leaned back in her seat, letting the warmth of the car and the kindness beside her sink. In that moment, she realized that sometimes heroes didn't wear capes. Sometimes they wore old coats and quiet smiles and stood between you and the world when you needed it most. But life, it's a way of testing the people who stand up for others. What Anna didn't know was that this moment would be the start of something she never saw coming, a chain of events that would test her trust, challenge her strength, and show the world a side of Keanu Reeves that few had ever seen. And so, as the city drifted past, Anna wondered what tomorrow would bring, not knowing that the greatest stories often begin when the cameras stop rolling. The morning sun slipped through thin hotel curtains, pulling Anna from sleep before she was ready. She blinked at the ceiling, the events of the night before replaying in her mind like a movie she wasn't sure she wanted to watch again. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand, message after message, headline after headline. She didn't even need to open them to know what they said. It would show her flinching face, the harsh questions. And Keanu stepping in like a knight when she didn't even have words left to defend herself. She sat up, her hair falling over her eyes. Somewhere deep down, a tiny part of her wished she could just stay hidden forever. But that wasn't life, and it surely wasn't her life. She swung her feet off the bed and stretched, trying to shake off the heaviness. When she finally checked her phone, her breath caught. She hadn't expected this. Thousands of comments, not mocking, but kind. Fans praising Keanu for standing up, strangers telling her she was brave. Few headlines even asked why she had to endure that in the first place. Before she could read more, knock at the door snapped her back. Anna frowned, sliding her phone away. She wasn't expecting anyone this early. When she opened the door, Keanu stood there holding 2 paper cups of coffee and a small paper bag that smelled of fresh pastries. "Breakfast delivery," he said with that soft, crooked smile. "Figured you could use a break from your phone." Anna stepped aside, unable to hide her grin. "How did you even know my room number?" "Magic," he said, deadpan, then added, "And your assistant?" "She's very sweet." They sat by the window, sipping coffee as the city hummed below. For a while, neither of them said much. It was just the clink of the paper cup lids, the warmth of the steam, and the way the early sunlight made everything feel a little less heavy. Soon, Anna's thoughts bubbled to the surface. "Does it ever get easier?" she asked, her eyes staring at the skyline, but seeing something far away. The noise, the stories they make up, the way they make you feel like you owe them something. Keanu leaned back in his chair, his fingers tapping the cup lightly. "It doesn't get easier," he said honestly, "but you get stronger. You learn to keep the part of you that matters away from them." Anna let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. But what if you can't? What if they find ways to twist everything? Keanu's eyes softened. "Then you find people who remind you who you are." His words landed in a quiet corner of her heart. She watched him for a moment, seeing past the actor, past the headlines that called him Hollywood's nice guy. There was a weight to him, a story behind his calm that made her wonder what he had seen, what storms he had walked through alone. Before she could ask more, his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, and his brow furrowed slightly. "I have to head to a meeting," he said, standing, "but take the day. Don't read too much, just breathe." He paused at the door, turning back with that same steady warmth. "And Anna, you don't owe them anything." The door clicked shut and she was alone again, but not really. Somehow, the room felt different, lighter, stronger. She pulled her phone back out, ready to face whatever the headline said. But just as she started scrolling, a new notification popped up, an email with a subject line that made her stomach flip. "Exclusive story offer your side of the night?" Anna frowned. The name was familiar. Celebrity gossip reporter known for digging where he wasn't invited. She almost deleted it, but curiosity got the better of her. The email was short. "Too sweet, Anna. I'm sure you're overwhelmed. People want to hear your truth. I'd love to help you tell it, unfiltered. There's a good offer for it, too. Call me." She tossed her phone on the bed, feeling the old unease creeping back in. The kindness of last night was already being used as bait. She stood by the window, breathing deep. No, not today. She wouldn't let them pull her into another trap. Not when she'd just felt what real support looked like. But across town, the reporter wasn't waiting. He was already drafting an article, spinning a story that would twist Keanu's simple act of kindness into rumors of something more, and as the words flowed onto his screen, he didn't care whose lives they would tangle. Anna didn't know yet that this was only the first step into a mess that would test her friendships and her faith in people. But deep down, she felt a storm was coming. She just didn't know who would stand beside her when the winds got stronger. The first sign of trouble came 2 days later. Anna was sitting in a quiet corner of a coffee shop, sunglasses tucked low on her nose, hoping to enjoy 10 minutes of normal life before the next press event. Her phone buzzed again and again until she couldn't ignore it. Her manager's name flashed on the screen, Anna sighed and answered, double quotes, Anna, have you seen it? Her manager's voice was tight, like a stretched wire. Seen what? Anna asked, her heart already dropping. Her eyes flicked to the newsstand by the counter. Splashed across every tabloid cover was her face, but it wasn't just her. There was Keanu, too, frozen mid-smile, his arm around her shoulders from that night. The headline screamed, Secret Lovers? What Keanu doesn't want you to know?
Anna
Felt the heat rush to her face. She flipped through the photos, blurry shots of them leaving the theater. Another of them sharing breakfast near her hotel window. Her words caught in her throat. They make it sound like we're hiding something. You know how it is, her manager said, softer now. They twist it. But your next event is tonight. Expect questions. Anna ended the call and closed. Her coffee sat untouched as she scrolled through comment after comment. Most people were kind. Some were cheering them on, seeing a fairy tale that wasn't there. But others, the cruel ones, it didn't hold back. Calling her names, saying she was using him, wondering how long she'd cling to the nice guy. She pushed her phone away, her hands trembling. The weight of other people's words pressed down on her chest. She felt exposed, like they'd broken open something that wasn't even theirs to touch. Her thoughts raced. What would Keanu think? Did he know? She didn't have to wonder for long. As she stepped out of the cafe into the sharp afternoon light, she spotted him leaning against a black car, sunglasses on, hair pulled back, calm as ever. He gave her that same half-smile that made her want to believe things would be fine. Hey, he said, pushing himself off the car. Needed some air? More like needed to not scream into my pillow, Anna muttered. She tried to laugh, but it came out like a choked sigh. Have you seen it? Keanu nodded. Yeah. Oh, they'll run with it for a while. But people know. Better. Anna shook her head, her eyes shining with frustration. Do they? I didn't ask for this. I didn't want us to be. Why didn't I? Keanu watched her for a moment, then opened the car door for her. Come on, let's get out of here. Slid into the passenger seat, the door closing out the noise for a moment. They drove in silence through the city's winding streets, neither one needing to fill the space with empty words. Finally, Keanu pulled into a small park, the kind tucked away from tourists. They walked down a trail, the sun warm on their shoulders. The world around them quiet, except for the whisper of leaves overhead. They sat on an old wooden bench, the city hidden behind a wall of trees. Keanu leaned forward, elbows on his knees. You know, he said, his voice softer than she'd ever heard. I've been here before. Anna tilted her head. Here? The park? No, he said with a small smile, with a rumor. The noise. They've done it to me too. Tried to turn kindness into something it isn't. Once, years ago, they twisted a photo of me helping a stranger. Suddenly I was secretly engaged. People love stories that don't belong to them. Anna listened, every word sinking in like a stone in a still pond. How do you live with it? Keanu looked at her, his eyes steady, unwavering. By remembering who I am, by choosing my truth every single day. Anna felt her shoulders loosen a little. For a moment, the weight lifted. She leaned back on the bench, closing her eyes, letting the sun warm her face. What if they don't? Stop, she whispered. Then we don't stop either, he said. We keep living our real lives. We keep being kind, even when they twist it. They can't take that from us. She opened her eyes and looked at him. In that quiet corner of the park, the noise seemed so far away, but a small worry still flickered inside her. This could hurt you too, she said softly. The studio. Your image, they're dragging your name into something that doesn't exist. Keanu laughed then, a sound so warm that it caught her off guard. Anna, my image? What is that worth if it means leaving a friend alone in the storm? She felt her eyes sting, but this time with gratitude. Before she could answer, his phone buzzed on the bench between them. He glanced at it, then showed her the screen. A text from his agent. We need to talk. Studio is nervous. Call ASAP. Anna felt her heart dip. She looked at him, searching for any sign of regret, but all she saw was calm. Are you okay? She asked. He nodded. always. But deep inside, both of them knew this was just the beginning. Because the storm wasn't just noise anymore. It was a test. One that would force them to fight for their truth, no matter how many cameras tried to twist it. And somewhere in a dark office, the same gossip reporter was digging deeper, looking for anything he could use to feed the fire he had started ending line. Anna sat alone in her hotel room, the city buzzing far below. She could hear it through the window, car horns, laughter, the distant hum of life carrying on while her world felt like it was shrinking. She pulled her knees to her chest, phone buzzing beside her like a tiny warning bell. Every new message made her flinch. Some were kind, but some were sharp as knives. She knew Keanu was meeting with his agent in the studio today. She hated that his kindness to her had turned into a problem he had to fix. She kept replaying the words he'd said at the park. They can't take that from us. But right now, it felt like they were taking everything, her peace, her sleep, his reputation. She forced herself up and splashed water on her face. She didn't want to feel weak. She'd been through worse. When she came to Hollywood, she had nothing but hope and a second-hand suitcase. She reminded herself of that. She had survived gossip before. But this felt different, heavier, because someone else was being dragged down with her. Someone she respected, someone she was starting to care about more than she wanted to admit. Knock at the door snapped her out of her thoughts. She opened it to find Keanu standing there, looking calm but tired. He held up a paper bag like a peace offering. "Breakfast again?" she asked, half-dash smiling. "Double quotes lunch," he said. "Come on. You need to eat." They sat by the window again, the same spot where the paparazzi had snapped that photo that fed the rumor mill. For a moment, they both stared at the street below. People, walking around with no idea what it felt like to be picked apart by strangers. "How was the meeting?" Yana asked finally, her voice careful. Keanu leaned back, running a hand through his hair. It was tense. "They're worried about the movie's image. They want me to put out a statement, distance myself." Anna's stomach dropped. "Oh," the word fell from her lips like a stone. "And will you?" He looked at her, eyes steady as always. "No," she blinked. "Keanu, you don't have to do this." "I don't want to drag you down," shook his head, that small, patient smile on his face. "Anna, you're not dragging me anywhere. They asked me to say we're not friends, that we barely know each other. Is that what happened that night?" "Was nothing. But that's not true. I won't lie to make them comfortable." Her eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. "But they'll punish you for it." "Maybe," he said. "But I've learned something in this business. The truth has a way of surviving. Kindness does too." Anna wanted to believe him, but her heart still twisted. She pushed her food around with a fork. "I wish I was stronger," she whispered, "like you." Keanu let out a soft laugh. "You think I'm strong?" "Anna, I'm just stubborn. You're the strong one. Show up every day. Keep being. You even when they try to rewrite your story. That's strength." They sat in silence for a while, the kind that felt like a warm blanket instead of an awkward gap. But soon, Keanu's phone buzzed again. He read the message, and his jaw tightened. "What? Is it?" Anna asked, leaning forward. He hesitated, then showed her the screen, a link to an article. The headline made her blood run cold. At Armas. "The secret past she didn't want you to know, and how Keanu Reeves is involved." Anna grabbed the phone, reading the lines in disbelief. They had dragged up old photos from her first days in Hollywood, rumors about how she got her first roles, lies about people she'd never even met. And in the middle of it all, they painted Keanu as some hidden benefactor, twisting his kindness into something dirty. "This is insane," she said, her hands shaking. "None of this is true. They're making me look like..." She couldn't even finish the sentence. Keanu gently took the phone from her. "They're desperate. They know the real story doesn't sell, so they create one that does." Anna stood up, pacing the room. "I can't let this stand. I have to say something." "Then say it," Keanu said calmly. "We'll say it together, but they'll twist that too." She cried. Keanu stood and placed his hands on her shoulders. "Anna, look at me." She did, her eyes wide and wet. What they say is noise. What we do is what matters. You want to speak up? We will. But not for them. For you. For us. Because the truth is ours to keep. His words steadied her, just a little. She nodded, wiping her eyes. Okay, but how? Keanu's eyes glinted with an idea. We tell our story. Ourselves, no gossip sites, no reporters twisting it. We sit down, we talk, and we share the truth. Your words, my words. Unedited. Anna swallowed, a mix of fear and hope rising in her chest. What if nobody believes us? He smiled that quiet, patient smile. Then we keep living like they do. We don't let lies turn us into people we're not. Outside, the city moved. Unaware that two people in a hotel room were about to do something most stars never dared trust the world with their truth, even if it broke them first. The studio lights were harsh, brighter than any red carpet flash. Anna sat in the middle of a small plane set, just 2 chairs, a single camera, and a quiet crew Keanu had picked himself. No gossip outlets, no filtered questions, no scripts, just their voices. It felt raw, terrifying even. But she felt ready, or at least ready enough. Keanu sat beside her, calm as ever. His presence steadied her breathing. He looked at her before they started, leaning close enough that only she could hear. Remember, Anna, it's your story. Nobody else owns it. She nodded. Her hands trembled in her lap, but she didn't hide them. She wanted people to see the truth, not just her words, but her fear and her strength sitting side by side. The camera operator gave a small nod. They were rolling. Anna took a breath. Hi, she began, her voice soft but steady. You've all seen the pictures, the headlines, the rumors, but you haven't heard our side. So, here it is. She glanced at Keanu. He gave her a small, encouraging smile, then faced the camera too. That night, I was scared, Anna said. The paparazzi were shouting things at me I didn't know how to answer. I felt small, humiliated. And Keanu didn't have to step in. He could have walked away. But he didn't. He stood up for me. Not because we're some secret couple, not because there's some scandal, but because he's a kind person, because he treats people like they matter. Keanu spoke next, his voice warm but clear. I didn't do anything special. What? I did what I hope anyone would do for someone being shouted at in the dark. We live in a world where kindness gets twisted. People want to believe there's always a hidden reason, but sometimes there isn't one. Sometimes you just help because it's the right thing to do. Anna's hands were still shaking. She folded them together. These stories they're making up, they hurt. They hurt me. They hurt my family. And they hurt Keanu. But more than that, they make people think that kindness is fake. That every smile hides a lie. And I don't want to live in a world like that. Do you? She looked directly into the lens, eyes wet but fierce. I'm not perfect. I've made mistakes. But I've never lied about this. I don't owe the world my private life, but I owe myself my truth. I'm not some secret that needs explaining. I'm just me. I'm tired of being turned into someone I'm not. Keanu leaned forward, elbows on his knees. We can't control what they'll say tomorrow. We can't stop every rumor. But we can stand here and say, enough, enough. With twisting good moments into ugly ones. Enough with tearing people apart because it sells magazines. We're not going to fight hate with hate. We'll just keep living with kindness because that's the story worth telling. The room fell silent when they finished. No dramatic music, no bright flashes, just the truth sitting between them like a fragile, glowing ember. Anna felt lighter and heavier all at once. She looked at Keanu, who gave her that calm, steady nod that said, "You did good." When they stepped out of the studio, the city greeted them with its usual noise. They knew the video would be up by morning. Some people would listen. Some wouldn't. But they had spoken. Their words, their way. But even as they walked together to the car, a shadow lingered. Keanu's phone buzzed with a message from his agent. It's out of our hands now. Brace yourself. Anna read the message over his shoulder. What does that mean? She asked. Keanu shrugged lightly. Means we keep doing what we're doing. They'll twist it, maybe. But the right people will hear us. Anna wanted to believe that. But the world outside their bubble didn't care about the truth as much as it cared about a good story. They drove through the city lights. She wondered how much more they'd have to give up before people let them be real. Unedited and human, dot deep in her chest, though a small flame of hope flickered. Because maybe, just maybe, the world was ready to listen. The video went live overnight. At first, Anna didn't look at the numbers. She didn't scroll the comments or open the headlines. She just sat on her tiny hotel balcony, wrapped in a blanket, letting the early dawn breeze wash over her. Every so often she checked her phone, only to put it back down again. Keanu came by before the sun had fully risen. He brought coffee, he always did, and set it down next to her. He didn't say anything about the video, the news, or the noise buzzing outside. Instead, he asked, "Sleep at all?" Anna shook her head, then laughed softly. "Not really. But I feel like I can breathe again." Keanu smiled, leaning against the balcony railing. "Good. You did something brave." Anna looked at him, really looked at him. Calm strength in his eyes reminded her why she'd made it this far. We did it together. By noon, they couldn't ignore the storm anymore. Her phone buzzed, nonstop. Articles, reactions, messages from people she hadn't heard from in years. Some kind, some cruel. She and Keanu sat together on the hotel bed, scrolling through the comments side by side. Some people mocked them, saying it was a stunt, a lie to get sympathy. But others, hundreds, then thousands, thanked them. Actors, young hopefuls. Fans who'd been mocked or bullied, they called her brave. They called Keanu decent. They said they'd never look at gossip the same way again. Anna felt the words sink in, warm like sunlight on a cold morning. "Do you think it'll matter?" she asked. "Do you think people will really care in a week?" Keanu set his phone down and turned to her, his eyes kind but firm. It already mattered. Maybe not to everyone, but to the ones who needed it most. Yeah, they see it. They feel less alone. Later that night, they went to the last big event. For the movie, it was almost poetic. The same kind of red carpet that started this mess. As their car pulled up, Anna's stomach twisted. She could already hear the shouts outside, the click of cameras. She felt Keanu's hand on hers, warm and steady. "We go out there," he said. "Heads up, our truth. Nothing to hide." Anna nodded. The car door swung open, and the noise rushed in. Lights flashed, the crowd surged. But this time, when the paparazzi shouted questions, Anna didn't flinch. She stood tall, her arm linked with Keanu's. A reporter pushed forward. Camera raised high. "Anna, Keanu, is it true you're dating? Is it true you're lying to everyone?" Anna looked straight at him, her voice calm, clear. "What's true is we respect each other. We care about each other. And we're not for sale, no matter how many times you twist the story." Keanu's smile was small, but unshakable. "Print that," he said, his voice gentle but final. Walked inside together, leaving the shouting behind them like distant thunder. Inside the theater, they sat side by side. The lights dimmed, the screen flickered to life. As the opening credits rolled, Anna leaned over and whispered, "Thank you." Keanu just shrugged, that soft laugh of his making her smile. Nobody should stand alone in a storm. When the film ended and the lights came back on, people clapped, not just for the movie, but for them too. For showing the world that truth doesn't break when you stand in it together. Weeks later, the gossip sites moved on. The cruel comments faded into old headlines. But the video they made stayed online, a small piece of honesty in a world that often prefers noise. Sometimes, fans still sent messages, little reminders that kindness once seen can't be unseen. Anna and Keanu went back to work. To their lives, to the parts of themselves the world never got to own. They knew the noise might come back someday. It always does. But now, they knew they'd face it the same way. Side by side, choosing truth over lies, and kindness over fear. And for Anna, that was enough. That was everything. Because sometimes, when the world shouts at you, all you need is someone who stands beside you and reminds you that your story is still yours to tell.